Hey everyone, ready to get fired up? We're diving deep into some hardcore motivation today.
Buckle up.
We're talking Ben Lionel Scott and his take no prisoners approach to success. You guys requested this one, so I'm guessing you're ready to push your limits.
Well, Scott definitely pushes some buttons.
Who does? His whole message is about outworking everybody. Like
Yeah.
straight up, no excuses.
Right from the start, he sets the tone, no sugarcoating.
You will not outwork me, he says. Boom, mic drop.
I think he wants to make you uncomfortable, like really light a fire.
Yeah, he's basically saying talent and resources, those are all secondary.
What matters most is the hustle, the grind.
He even says, flat out, you might be smarter, you might have more connections, but then
But you will not outwork me. Like, that's his mantra.
it's almost aggressive, you know?
It's definitely in your face.
But it's also kind of inspiring, right? Like, if he can do it, why not me?
It makes you think.
It does. So is he right, though?
Yeah.
Can you really just outwork everyone and succeed in anything?
That's the big question, isn't it? Like, does this apply to everything? Every field?
Scott seems to think so.
Yeah.
He's got that whole bootstrap mentality.
But what about things like, I don't know, natural talent?
Right, or being in the right place at the right time.
Luck, even.
He doesn't really address those things. He's very focused on the effort part.
Okay, so let's say, for argument's sake, he's onto something with this whole outworking thing.
Sure.
What does that actually look like? Like, how do you actually outwork everyone?
Well, he gets pretty specific about that.
Does he?
He uses these great examples like, it's 45 on the treadmill, I do 46.
Whoa, okay.
Or it's supposed to be 20 phone calls, I make 21.
It's about going above and beyond every single time.
Exactly. Pushing past what you think is your limit.
Like, constantly raising the bar. On yourself, mostly.
He's all about self-improvement.
I like that. But is that really sustainable, though?
That's where things get interesting.
Because it sounds kind of intense.
He definitely advocates for a grind mentality.
Like, all work, no play.
He talks about making sacrifices. Sleep, social life, even comfort.
All for the sake of the goal. I wonder if he ever talks about the downsides.
That's a good point. We'll have to see as we dive deeper. He actually kind of embraces the idea of being misunderstood.
Like, he's almost proud of it.
He says, when people don't understand you anymore, you're in that spot of obsession and drive.
Wow. So is that healthy, though?
Well, that's a good question.
Where's the line, right, between, like, dedication and full-blown obsession?
He doesn't really address that.
I mean, everyone's always talking about hustle and grind these days.
True, but how much is too much?
Exactly. So where does balance fit in?
Right. Can you really be that driven and still have a life?
Like relationships, hobbies, downtime.
I think there's a real risk of tunnel vision with this kind of mindset.
Yeah, you get so focused on the goal, you miss everything else.
And even if you achieve the goal,
Was it worth it if you burn out or, like, push everyone away?
those are costs he doesn't really acknowledge.
Okay, so maybe obsession is a bit much.
Maybe.
But I do like his emphasis on pushing yourself, beyond what's comfortable.
Oh, absolutely. Comfort can lead to complacency.
And that ties into another big thing he talks about.
Competition.
Yeah, he's all about it.
Not just with others, though.
Oh, what else then?
With yourself, too. Like, always trying to improve.
He says losers always talk about how they hate to lose.
Exactly. And winners, they embrace it.
Winners do what it takes to win. His words, not mine.
He's very black and white about it.
But does comparing yourself to others always work?
It can be motivating
Sure,
Yeah.
but it could also be, like, super discouraging.
if you let it get to you, yeah.
Self-doubt, envy, all that stuff.
He doesn't really go into those downsides.
So what's the takeaway then? Should we all be hyper-competitive to succeed?
It depends. Some people thrive on it.
Others not so much.
You have to know yourself. What works for you?
Maybe your biggest competition is yourself, like yesterday's you.
That's a good way to put it. And this brings us to another really crucial point.
Ooh, what's that?
Standards. Setting them. And sticking to them.
He has this line, it's so good. We don't get our goals, we get our standards.
It's profound.
What do you think he means by that?
Our achievements reflect our expectations. If you aim high, you're more likely to reach your potential.
But if you settle for mediocrity, that's what you'll get.
Exactly. Your standards become your reality.
It's not just about dreaming big, it's about living up to those dreams.
Every single day. In every decision.
And that takes serious self-discipline, right?
He doesn't shy away from that. It's not easy.
It's a lot to take in. Push yourself, embrace the grind, obsess a little, set high standards.
It's an intense recipe for success.
But it might work.
It might,
Yeah.
but is it sustainable long term? That's the question.
Because he seems to think you can achieve anything if you just work hard enough.
And he ends with a pretty bold statement.
Yeah. What is it?
You might not outwork me for 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, but you ain't going to beat me over a year.
Wow. He's talking about commitment. Long-term commitment.
He never stops. He's always pushing, always going further.
It's kind of inspiring.
But is it realistic? That's what we have to consider.
Because even if you buy into all of this, how do you actually do it?
Without burning out, without losing yourself.
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? So where do we go from here? I mean, we've covered a lot, outworking everyone, grinding it out, obsession, high standards. Scott's definitely got a pretty intense view of success.
Yeah, it's definitely a challenge, right? It's like he's trying to wake us up, make us really examine our own effort.
He wants us to ask ourselves, are we really doing enough?
Exactly. Are we committed enough?
But, like we said, it's not about following his advice blindly.
Right. There's some things to consider, some potential pitfalls.
So if we had to boil it down, what's the main takeaway for our listeners? Like, what can they actually apply to their own lives?
Well, I think it comes down to this. Find those areas where you can push harder.
Even if it's just a little bit.
Right, like that extra 1% effort.
Outwork the competition.
Not always about hours, though. Could be focus. Could be strategy.
Always trying to get better, never settling.
Right. Setting those high standards, like he says.
Holding yourself accountable, not letting yourself off the hook.
He's basically saying it's okay to be a little obsessed.
Yeah, to really go after what you want.
But, and this is important, knowing your limits, too.
Knowing when to push and when to take a break.
Balance, right. That's always the tricky part.
Everyone's different, too. What motivates one person might totally stress out someone else.
Exactly. So you have to filter Scott's message through your own experiences.
Figure out what works for you, what parts of his advice resonate.
What gets you excited? What makes you think, maybe not for me?
Because this deep dive, it's not about copying Scott exactly.
No, it's about using his ideas as a starting point.
A way to explore your own potential, figure out your own definition of success.
Success is a journey, right? Not just a destination.
Scott's speech might be the kickstart.
But you have to figure out how to keep that momentum going.
Long term. So, I want to leave you guys with this. Scott said, you ain't going to beat me over a year. But what about you? What's your vision?
What do you want to achieve a year from now?
And are you willing to do what it takes to get there?
The answer to those questions. That's what's going to fuel your success.
Awesome. That's a wrap on this deep dive, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Keep pushing, keep learning, and stay motivated. We'll see you next time.